بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we are able to continue our discussion about one important aspect of existence, and that is the relation between existence and quiddity, wujud and mahiyya. So we said that when we say al-insanu mawjudun, we have insan as a mahiyya in the place of subject and mawjud as predicate. Indeed, it means this wujud is insan, because wujud is asil, wujud is real. So you have wujud and then your mind comes and analyze it. But because mind already has prepared these concepts, so comes with the concepts and tries to find which of these concepts have reality. But these realities are there and you have to analyze them. Okay? Imagine if you were empty in your mind. If we bring someone with empty mind, what that person would see is only beings. Then has to work out concepts, mahiyat. But now, because when we reach the age of examining the world, we have already developed these concepts and have listened from our parents and other people these concepts. So it's easier for us. But you should not misunderstand the reality. You bring concepts from previous experiences that you have to understand the real world, but don't think that the real world is dependent on your concepts.
It's like child growing and watching the limbs.
Yes. So, what is there is a being which has some qualities, some properties. In Asalatul Wujud, I told you, hasti and chisti. Hasti is wujud, chisti is mahiyat, whatness is mahiyat. Whatness comes after existence, chisti comes after hasti. Okay, alhamdulillah, we mentioned this. So we have aksul haml. When we say al-insanu mawjudun, indeed it means hadha al-mawjud insan. وَبِذَلِكَ يَنْدَفِعُ الْإِشْكَالُ الْمَعْرُوفُ. Allama Tabatabai says, based on what we have said, a famous objection will be resolved, will be answered, clarified. What is that ishkal ma'ruf, that common and famous objection? في حمل الوجود على الماهية. Some people have made an objection about the possibility of making wujud mahmul for mahiyya. When we say al-insanu mawjudun, they said there's a problem here. What is the problem? They said, من أن قاعدة الفرعية. This is the objection. قاعدة فرعية, the rule of فرعيات. What is the rule of فرعيات? ثبوت شيء لشيء فرع ثبوت المثبت له. أعني أن ثبوت شيء لشيء فرع ثبوت المثبت له. This is the قاعدة فرعية. Means when you want to prove something for another thing, it depends on having the other thing first there, so that we can prove this for it. They said this rule tujibu. This rule would make it necessary to have ثبوتا للمثبت له قبل ثبوت الثابت. We should have a kind of existence and reality for subject before belonging of this wujud. So before this mahmul, which is wujud, belongs to it, it has to already exist. فثبوت الوجود للماهية يتوقف على ثبوت الماهية قبله. Whenever we want to say this mahiya exists, we should first establish that mahiya has thubut. Thubut means wujud. So, thubut al-wujud lil-mahiya far'u thubut al-mahiya. So it means it should exist first so that we can say it exists. It's a problem. If you say it should exist before we can say it exists, what is that existence? Is it the same existence? Then this is a vicious circle. In order to exist, it has to exist first. If it is another existence, then we say, okay, that existence exists for it or doesn't exist for it. You must say it exists for it. So we say again, subut shay'in li shay'in faru subut musbat Allah. So that existence also before exists should be preceded by another existence. And it goes on forever.
Why would they say that? Because they must know that if something exists, it can exist mentally.
Aha.
It may not exist in reality.
Yes.
Why would they come
Because
to
they
that
didn't take this lesson.
But why would philosophers come to that conclusion?
Yes, they didn't study things properly. Yes. They said, we take a book on philosophy and we read. Then this is the problem. Okay. فثبوت الوجود للماهية يتوقف على ثبوت الماهية. It's good to mention this point. Sometimes people think traditional studies, education in houses is very slow. Because you spend 15, 20 years just to become a reasonable scholar. If you want to become an outstanding scholar, 30 years, 40 years. Yeah? So just, 3-4 years for us is to warm up. So some people say, why you are so slow? Today the world is very fast. 2 years, 3 years, graduate come to the market. Yeah, the universities, even they are shortening the programs. So they say, why Hosa is so slow? The answer is, we prefer to learn less but make less mistakes than rushing and getting lots of information but not being able to process them and have lots of confusions and mistakes. Yeah? We prefer to make a building that lasts for centuries, not to make quickly a tower that after few questions and challenges, your tower will collapse. Some people quickly make a tower and then start showing, that they know about everything. But this is void because not built from the foundations. Okay? So the big difference between, for example, when an alim gives a lecture or someone reads the lecture of an alim and then gives the same lecture. Maybe you think this person actually is better. Yeah? Sometimes the people who just teach themselves or, listen to a lecture and then give lectures, sometimes they are even better. Why? Because they only have focus on presentation. Yeah? Imagine you make lots of efforts to make a food. But someone buys food from the market and just makes some salad and makes the dress very beautiful. Say, oh, mashallah, she's better. Not knowing that she has purchased from the restaurant. Yeah? And then you see, you have problem in digestion. So some people take prepared and ready-made lectures and give to people. It looks nice because they have just put energy on presentation. But an alim who is developing and cooking is different. You never, if you are a rational community, we never replace maybe a little bit boring or dry lecture of an alim with, exciting presentation of a person who is not alim. If you are a rational community. You never replace that. So, now, let's go back to this. ثبوت الوجود للماهية يتوقف على ثبوت الماهية قبله. Before wujud can be existing for mahiyya, that mahiyya should exist. This is objection. فَإِنْ كَانَ ثُبُوتُهَا عَيْنَ ثُبُوتِهِ. If the existence of mahiyat is the same as the existence of this wujud, then means this wujud has to exist before itself. ثبوت شيء لشيء فرع ثبوت المثبت له. If this ثبوت شيء لشيء and that ثبوت المثبت له are the same, means this should exist before it's there, should precede itself. لازم تقدم الشيء على نفسه. It requires that something should be before itself, precede itself. وإن كان غيره. If you say no, that subut for mahiyya which is required before this is another subut. Before we can say mahiyya is mawjood, it should exist with another subut. So we say, oh, this makes it even worse, because then we have for everything to have two wujud. And then even for the first wujud, we say, okay, that wujud is for mahiyya or not? Yes. So again, thubutu shay'an l'shay'an, far'u thubutel musbatillah. Then it becomes 3, then it becomes 4, it becomes 5. It never stops. لازم تقدم الشيء على نفسه. If it is the same wujud, then it means that that wujud exists before itself. If it is different, توقف ثبوته لها على ثبوت آخر لها. Then it means that belonging of existence to mahiyya depends on mahiyya having another existence, and then that existence again, because it belongs to that mahiyya, should be preceded by another existence, the third also by another. It goes forever. وَحَلُمَّ جَرَّ. Halumma jarra means keep going. فَيَتَسَلْسَلْ. Okay, this is the problem. This is the common ishkal, common objection. وَقَدْ اضْطَرَّ هَذَا الْإِشْكَالِ بَعْضَهُمْ. This objection has compelled, has forced some of the thinkers, maybe they are not philosophers, maybe they are mutakallim, maybe they are mantiqi, not necessarily top established philosophers, some of these people. Some of them more kind of involved in other subjects, because sometimes these issues are discussed in different fields. Anyway, some of these philosophers or thinkers have been forced to say أن القاعدة مخصصة بثبوت الوجود للماهية. This rule is مخصص, means it has been limited and restricted, means it is it has exception. It is means this has come out of it. It is restricted and limited to what? ثبوت الوجود للماهية, means it doesn't include.
What is mukhassas mean?
Takhsis means to exclude. So means they have said this rule is no longer You know, in usul al-fiqh we say ma min shay'in illa waqad khussa. You remember? We said any general rule in fiqh normally has exceptions. Yeah? These people thought we can say the same thing in philosophy. But philosophy is like that. Other subjects. In fiqh it's possible. For example, we say every person who is aqil and baligh should make wuzu. But then we say there are also exceptions. For example, sometimes you do tayammum. Yeah? Every person who travels should break his fast, for example. But then we say there are exceptions. Are you traveling after Zohr or before Zohr? Are you kasiru safar or not? Or this safar ma'asi or not? Yeah? In fiqh we have lots of exceptions. But in philosophy, in intellectual sciences, in mathematics, we cannot have exceptions. Indeed, if you are very careful, you find even in fiqh we don't have exceptions. When you mention a rule in a vague way, then you think there are exceptions. Otherwise, if you formulate the rule from the beginning with all the parameters, then it has no exception. When you say every aqil and baligh should make wuzu, then it has exceptions. But if from the beginning you say every aqil and baligh who has access to water and water is not harmful for him and has time, then has to make wuzu, it has no exception. Yeah?
When you put in that question, you ask for taharat, whether by water or by dry ablution, you need taharat. So it's the same thing. Is that the way to look at it?
Yeah, but then tahara is with water,
Yeah.
but they may say then it has exceptions, when water is not available, for example. But as I said, if you really formulate it well,
Yes.
it should have no exception,
Indeed.
because it is very well, articulated in fiqh. Yes, maybe in languages there are exceptions. For example, when you study English grammar or spelling, there are lots of exceptions. Yeah? For example, they say every word which starts, for example, with this, it's to be spelled like this. But then they give you a list of exceptions. Yeah?
Indeed, yes.
But in philosophy, we cannot have exceptions. In mathematics, we cannot have exceptions. Even as I said, in akhlaq, in fiqh, there are no exceptions. If you really understand. For example, some people say telling truth is good, but it has exceptions when telling truth endangers an innocent life. But we say, actually, if you formulate it well, it has no exception.
Indeed.
If from the beginning you articulate it well, then it would be always true. Okay, some people, in order to answer and refute this objection, they tried to say, which is not working, that this rule does not apply here when we are talking about existence of mahiyya, because it's mukhassas, it has been restricted to other issues. We don't accept this answer. We say it's not in hand of me and you to say where this rule should apply and where it shouldn't apply. Yeah, it's not something that you can make a legislation and say, from now on we don't apply this rule here. Okay? For example, in laws of the country, it is possible. For example, they say every person should make this much tax. Should pay this much tax. But then they may pass a law and say, if you are starting a business, the first 2-3 years you don't need to give tax, for example. This is possible, but this is not in philosophy or logic. You cannot make a law and then after some time say, okay, now we make an amendment for that. If you make amendment, it means that in the first place you didn't understand it properly.
How about the United Quran? They say before you ask advice from the Prophet, you have to give sadaqah.
Yes.
And then it was removed because people were not doing it. Imam Mahdi was doing it. How do you explain that then?
So we believe even that rule which is abrogated from the beginning was not meant to be forever.
Not
Yes, it was for a short period of time. So قد اضطر هذا الإشكال بعضهم إلى القول بأن القاعدة مخصصة بثبوت الوجود للماهية. This objection has compelled some of the philosophers and thinkers to say that the rule of far'iyya is restricted to other areas. It would not include ثبوت الوجود للماهية. Okay? It doesn't include this one. So they have excluded this from the rule. Some other people tried another solution. Some people have said we don't say far, we say ثبوت الشيء لشيئين فرع ثبوت المثبت له. They say we don't say فرع ثبوت المثبت له, we say مستلزم لثبوت المثبت له. Confirming something for another thing, we said, requires that thing to exist before. Some people said, no, we don't say it requires to exist before. It implies the existence of that. When you say A is B, it implies that B must be there, even if it is with B. When you say A is B, they say A must be there, but not necessarily before B comes. A must be there. When B is there, maybe B gives existence to A. Mustalzamun, it requires existence of A even with B, no problem. What is important is that when B is there, A must be existing. But it doesn't need to exist before or by something else. They have gone closer to the truth. But the reality is none of these things. The reality is, as we said, either what Allama Tabatabai said, that to say this rule would not apply to haliyya basite, or as we said, to say thubut here doesn't mean external thubut, which is, I think, maybe a better answer. Because it can be even in qadaya saliba. When you say something is white or something is not white, in both cases you have to understand the subject. And subject has to have a kind of reality somewhere, has to exist somewhere. But it doesn't need to exist in the real world. It can be also in the world of imagination or in the world of conception. وَبَعْضُهُمْ means اضطر بعضهم. It has compelled some of the thinkers, some others, to replace far'iyya with istilzam. So instead of saying ثبوت شيء لشيء فرع ثبوت المثبت له, they said ثبوت شيء لشيء مستلزم لثبوت المثبت له. What difference it makes? The difference is that it doesn't say it has to exist before. When we say A is B, according to فرع ثبوت المثبت له, it means A must be there, then we can say B is for A. But these people say when you say A is B, this implies that A must be there, but not before necessarily. It can be before or it can come with coming of B. B by itself gives subut to A. It's like, for example, if I want to make it very simple, to simplify it. For example, sometimes a painter comes and you say, paint this, for example, chair for us. So far, what we were saying was, we should have a chair, and then the painter can come. So first, have the chair, and then ask the painter to come and paint it. This says the painter can bring the chair with himself. So you say, please, when you come, bring a chair and paint it for us. I am oversimplifying. Okay. So, they say, ثبوت شيء لشيء مستلزم لثبوت المثبت له. It implies, it requires that the subject should exist, even if it is with the same predicate. This predicate is bringing subject into existence and giving it a quality. وثبوت الوجود للماهية مستلزم لثبوت الماهية بنفس هذا الوجود. When you say ماهية has wujud, this wujud is applied as predicated for ماهية, and by itself makes ماهية something that is thabit, it exists. So this is the second answer. The third answer, some people have really gone too far. Some people have said أن الوجود لا تحقق له. They said wujud has no reality. لا ثبوت له في ذهن ولا خارج. Wujud has no reality, neither in mind nor in the real world, external world. They said wujud is only a grammatical solution that we have in our language. When we want to say something is there or is not there, we say mawjud, but there is nothing as mawjud. It's only mahiyat. We don't have anything as wujud. These people have gone too far from the opposite direction. So, you say asalatul wujud. These people say wujud is only imagination. Pardon? No, this is for mumkinat.
There's one thing, I remember you said that Allah is the only person in the world, the only, and we are just raised from Him. So we are really.
Allah is the only independent person. Allah is the only independent.
So we can be withdrawn anytime, and all the mountains are the same, I suppose.
Yes.
And they can be withdrawn. So with time we just.
But it doesn't say we can be withdrawn or stopped. It says we don't exist even now.
Oh, I see.
أن الوجود لا تحقق له ولا ثبوت له في ذهن ولا في خارج. Wujud has no reality, neither in mind nor in the external world. So, what is then the meaning of when we say al-insanu mawjudun? للموجود معنى بسيط. Mawjud has a very simple meaning. Mawjud is not شيء له الوجود. Mawjud has a simple, not compound, meaning which in Farsi we say hast. Okay? Hast means exists. And you look at it, you think it is mushtaq. Mawjud, it looks like mushtaq. It's shay'un lahul wujud. Yeah, like maktub, ma'loom. But he says, no, you shouldn't analyze it. Mawjud altogether means that something is there. It's hast, like hast in Farsi. لا ثبوت له حتى يتوقف على ثبوت الماهية. Wujud has no reality independent. Of course, we said this is very wrong. The last answer, which is given by others, is وبعضهم استر بعضهم إلى القول بأن الوجود ليس له إلا المعنى المطلق والحساس. Please be careful how to write this paragraph. الوجود ليس له إلا المعنى المطلق والحساس. Wujud has two meanings. It is said that this was the opinion of Haji Sabzevari, Hakim Sabzevari. He said, Wujud has two types. One is mutlaq, means just existence. A very absolute, sirful wujud, mahwul wujud, mutlaqul wujud. Wal hissas. Hissas is the plural for hissa. Hissa means portion. So, portion. Like we say, wujudul insan, wujudul faras, wujudul baqar. This is different from simple existence. Wujudul mutlaq means wujud without adding anything. Indeed, when you add, you limit. You accept? When you add something to exist, you are limiting it. Because when you say wujud, it's general. When you say wujudul insan, it becomes a portion of that general, extent of wujud. Hissa means part of it, portion. Is it clear? Yes. So, Haji Sabzevari rahmatullah alayhi says wujud, it's either used as mutlaq or hissas. Insan means wujud al-insan, wujud al-faras, or just wujud. المعنى المطلق وهو معنى الوجود العام والحساس وهو المعنى العام مضافا إلى ماهية ماهية وجود الإنسان وجود الفرس وجود البقر. But when you say وجود الإنسان, please be very careful. He mentions something too technical, very technical for this stage of philosophy, but I have to explain. When you say وجود الإنسان, okay, this wujud has belonged to a mahiyya, wujudul insan. I want to really stretch your mind. When you say wujudul insan, question, is this insan part of wujudul insan, the concept of wujudul insan? Wujud is now muqayyad bil insaniyya. Wujud al faras, wujud is muqayyad bil furusiyya. Okay, existence of human being, existence of horse, existence of cow, existence of flower. Okay, when you say existence as such or existence of flower, Haji Sabzawari says you have to be careful when you say existence of flower. Flower is not part of existence because that's mahiyya. So it is existence with belonging to mahiyya, but mahiyya is not part of existence because these are two separate things. Al-Ghaydu wa-Taqayyud wal-Muqayyad. There are three things. When you say wujudul insan, wujud is muqayyad, something which is modified. Insan is ghaid, insan is modifier. Taqayyud means belonging of this ghaid to muqayyad, narrowing down. So wujud can be general, mutlaq, or you can say wujud in human beings, wujud in horse, wujud in flower. But be careful, it's again only wujud with the modification and not the modifier. The modifier is mahiyya, is outside wujud. So if you consider mahiyya, it's not falling under wujud. Anyway, this is the answer that some people have tried to say, and therefore they wanted to say that there is no thubut shay'an la shay'an, because when you are talking about mahiyya, mahiyya has no wujud. These are not good answers. The real answer is, Allama Tabatawi says none of these answers work. The real and the true answer is that qa'idah far'iyya is for al-haliyatul murakkaba, not for haliyatul basita. He says, Anna al-qa'ida annama tajri, this rule only is applied fi thubut shay'an la shay'an la fi thubut shay. Thubut shay'an la shay'an means haliyya murakkaba, la fi thubut shay, which is haliyya basita. It's when we are talking about something which exists, has a quality, zayd and standing. But when we are talking about existence of zayd, this is not qa'idatul far'iyya. أنما تجري في ثبوت شيء لشيء لا في ثبوت الشيء. بعبارة أخرى, in other words, مجرى القاعدة. What does it mean, مجرى? Means where this qaida can be applied. Where this qaida can be applied is الحلية المركبة دون الحلية البسيطة كما نحن فيه. The question at issue here is haliyya basita, because we are talking about wujud of mahiyya. Al-insanu mawjudun, al-baqaru mawjudun.
What's the meaning of haliyya?
Haliyya is the answer to the question by hal. Means yes or no question. Because in mantiq we said sometimes our question is expressed in the form of hal. Sometimes in the question of ma. Sometimes the question of lema. There are three types of questions. There are three major questions. Matlabu ba, matlabu hal, matlabu lem. Sometimes you ask, what is it? Sometimes you ask whether it is there or not. Sometimes you ask, why? Three major questions. Of course, then it can be driven into more questions, up to 7, 8 questions. So, to sum up what we have said, we say, wujud can be considered by itself, can be considered in relation to mahiyat, or can be considered as different ranks and degrees of wujud. Then we said, when it's a matter of wujud and mahiyya, when we say wujud belongs to mahiyya, indeed it is actual haml, because mahiyya does not exist as such. It is al-mawjudu insanun. But we say al-insanu mawjudun because our mind is very much used to using concepts and brings these mahiyat first to consideration, then compares with existence and said, does this exist? Doesn't this exist? So when we form the proposition, we say al-insanu mawjudun, but in reality is this mawjud insan or it's something else? And then ثبوت شيء لشيء فرع ثبوت المثبت له, we said this would not cause any problem. We don't need to say in al-insanu mawjudun mahiyya should exist first so that we can say it exists. Because first, this rule is for haliyya murakkabe, not haliyya basita. It's not for the sentences which are only about existence. Or as I said, subut here doesn't need to be external subut. Subut can be in the real world, subut can be the mind. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. أحسنتم.